My name is Lisette Alvarez Holland, so I gotta put it all in. So I was not here live for the for yesterday for starting up the day. I decided I'm not going to be here necessarily on the weekends, but I am going to be posting the notes. But I wanted to go live 5 days a week. Well, let me tell you, as I put in my note yesterday, doing these human systems conversations has been quite depressing. I don't want to say depressing, but um, disappointing. The more I dive into being or attempting to be a human voice, a professional human voice, former clinician, my background is was in human performance, sports therapy, then went into regular mainstream healthcare as a physical therapist, and then quickly realized that one, even though I was given all the opportunities here in the United States of America, um, as a 1972 year born human woman, had got all the access. There was still a lot of things and bias that once I wanted to become a parent were in total conflict with my career. And I honestly was very ignorant to it because, I was like, as many women are from Gen X, we thought we like owned the world just like the men here in the U.S. at least, because we had gone to school with them. A lot of times we were uh, smarter in terms of academic intelligence and cognitive reasoning in terms of the metrics that people were using. We were keeping up, getting in the rooms, but then you get kind of inside the industry and you realized there's still some places that we need to go. And one of them was the fact that, you know what, 2 months off, a third month because I had saved and gotten the extra 4 weeks from my benefits or whatever, wasn't enough for me. Not when you're suffering from postpartum depression. And I got a big look then at women's health. Prior to that, I had been in orthopedics and sports, and a lot of that is male centric. And at the time in the 90s, it was not even really addressing women athletes in the way that we do now. So I was also working with a lot of pain people, and I had the beauty of getting patients from Dr. John Sarno, who in the 90s wrote a book, Mind Over Body, Mind Over Pain. And I was working with his patients. So I had already had a background with chronic pain from family members. And this all was convening at once. In 1999, this all was convening at once. And I knew then that I had to get out of the New York metropolitan area if I was ever going to be able to have a business in order to have a career I love. And that eventually became the Curvy Hustle. And that eventually became peer mentoring. And that eventually became um, trying to help other women in women's health, because I did a whole shift. I feel like it was a 180 when I went from orthopedics and sports medicine into women's health. And a lot of that was because I wanted to fill the gaps of what it felt like to be a human woman in the US at the time in healthcare. Um, I wanted to make sure that no one else went through the birthing trauma show that I did with my first kid. And a lot of the gaps that I had not seen in healthcare, despite working already. I had already been working several years for the top hospital systems inside New York City. Um, I saw where my education, a very good education, always getting A's, left me. And I could just imagine someone like my mother. I started to realize how many of the gaps, because of gender, but also because of being Hispanic in New York City, being Puerto Rican, um, in the 50s, my mother ended up going through, and my mom died of ovarian cancer. I mean, she died of mismanagement, the gaps in bedside manner and care with that. But she was dealing with ovarian cancer, and a lot of that cancer came out of the repression and the stress in just the system. So when I say human systems, and when I approached healthcare after birthing my own kids and after I needed to start my own practice. I wanted to bring that innovation into the hospital system I was working in. I chose to work in, thinking, hey, I have this innovative model of working with maternal health. Let me go work for the hospital part-time per diem and meet the people here, because I had moved at that time for my lifestyle. Again, getting out of the New York metro mindset of production, and it's Gotham. It was great for an entrepreneurial mind, but an entrepreneurial mind could not survive at the time in the way I wanted to end up parenting, and in my own personal health, having gone through postpartum depression, which we're all seeing in the current Clancy trial, is horribly still mismanaged, despite all of the birth of women's health, besides all of the work we've tried to introduce. So there's something that's not computing, right? There's something that's not computing. And that drove me upstream. And there's a lot of healthcare providers that did this. I just happened to be a mentor for the big boom of a lot of cash-based PT practices. I was talking to yoga therapists, and I was in that world. I myself went over to yoga, searching for a way to work through lifestyle healing and all of the trauma conversations, and in ways that would work with women, because the traditional healthcare models of rehab and recovery were failing them. They failed me. They failed my mother. They failed my grandmother. They failed my father. As a parent, I even saw that despite what I had been instilling at home and in my work, there were gaps that were going to be failing my children. And where do we go now? Because for me, I kept having to go upstream, because I realized, oh, this is an issue in women's health. So I switched over to that specialty. Then I realized, oh, this is an issue with community health, because these women in corporate are not given the opportunity to even utilize my services, because they're not even home enough. And then I was in a pocket of women who left, like me, in their professional prime, because they honestly understood the responsibility of bringing up another human and actually wanted that experience, which then puts me in the position right now of, I've always been into tech. I had an app for my people. I was online trying to go online with what we had in terms of platforms back in 2013-14, which were crap. So that didn't really work out. The tech wasn't really there, but the ideas were. Tried to make YouTube, but I didn't want to be an influencer, and that's what you had to do. I wanted to be a clinician and a consultant to create the model that I had for other women to be able to curve their career. Hence, I have the curvy hustle and trademarked that, so that they wouldn't leave. Because what was happening was, the women I was treating, they were those women in services and corporate and healthcare and education, and all these women who were getting burnt out. And then they saw so much success in the way I was approaching their lives, which was really just applying the social determinants of health, which, by the way, I could, outside the corporate industrial model of providing health and well-being. which is really just the corporate industrial medical complex's model of applying medicine. Even if I'm in allied health, it sticks me in that model of service provision and delivery. And so I'm trying to bring in the tech. I'm trying to bring in the convenience. I'm trying to make it so that if they didn't have the economics to come into me, they could still get the care. All the things that we're hearing AI will bring and revolutionize. I was not into medical diagnostics. That was not my profession. But it didn't matter if there was better medical. We were learning genomics and we've mapped out the whole entire thing. That didn't matter when my mother wasn't getting the proper care because, even in oncology, they're on a 7 minute, or maybe they take 14 minutes, and whatever, they're still on a program. They still weren't connecting to the human in front of them. And my mother's mental and emotional well-being, after being through several rounds of chemo and being told, even though her numbers were great and her metrics were great, being told, let's do another round, really did a job on her psyche. And within 2 months, she was dead. After working 3 years and several rounds of chemo and getting her numbers down to actually being in normal levels for that metric. So, I'm not anti-tech. I'm on the human side of this AI conversation because I see it coming in. And I decided I wanted to do a 90-day sprint in just talking very raw, off the cuff. Not that I don't have a structure for the day. Like, I wanted to talk about what it feels like being human in this AI mass adoption era. Coming from being the human I am, which is complex and layered. I am the anti-hegemony right here. You understand? I am saying the syntax of AI and large language models and associating myself, Dr. Lisette Alvarez Holland, which with some of these AI healthcare conversations, because I'm being currently cataloged right now. And every one of my peers, my intent with this sprint is to invite every one of my healthcare peers and those of us who are sort of in the mentorship, leadership development of healthcare peers. We're very service oriented women or professionals, whatever you identify as. If we're in this space right now, we're helping people adopt this outside of just saying, hey, put this tool inside your operating systems and you'll make more money. Because that's all I see in terms of AI and healthcare right now. Because big health is taking over the narrative. Well, I'm focused on community health. I'm focused on small health. I'm focused on the fact that that's where all of the people pushed out of that model, which is already happening because of the insurance and the payer setup, kind of influencing where and who you can get care from. There's people already getting pushed out. I think the number was 800,000 people were pushed out of their ACA plans because those rates went up. Like, there's a whole bunch of us that left mainstream to be coaches and consultants because we saw these problems on the horizon and we wanted to fill in the gaps. But we're not necessarily all working back inside big health or big corporations or big tech even. We're trying to work with the people like us who escaped those systems that were melting down, and we don't have the wiggle room to do this wrong. People in clinics, boutique clinics, they may have made $1 million company, but they don't have the space nor the bandwidth right now to reason why they either should even bring in AI, and all their business mentors are telling them you're already behind, you're going to be left behind, you're going to go out of business. I don't believe it. I believe that there will be a lot of noise to navigate, but the noise right now is coming from a big system that is collapsing. The value-based care conversation inside medicine and the medical complex, which has become synonymous with healthcare in the US, is not how community health operates already. It's not how I operated my clinical business. I created a wellness center model. I created a membership model. And in that, I had a part time women's health PT business. I also had a part time massage therapy business. Not that I owned, I rented to a woman who had that. I contracted in a mommy coach because although I could mommy coach, I was running my business. And I was doing it part time because actually this was my solution for parenting the way I wanted to. And my intention at the time was to blow it up when my kids were at a different level of development. Unfortunately, I had a huge divorce, a lot of infidelity, of financial infidelities, and a whole collapse. And then we went into the pandemic. You understand? But I'm still here doing the intent of helping the underdog. Why? Because that system that I saw crashing in 2014 and 2010, that was already not servicing the people I wanted to service, which were women, particularly those who were kind of lost between their professional careers and their professional way they wanted to mother their children. That problem's still here. This if I talk about how to make sure you're not feeding into the problems that have been created through big business getting its grip on healthcare, if you're not relating that to me still talking about small health and community health and empowering women, that's your problem. You're not connecting the dots. You understand? And a lot of that is the problem right now with why we're not getting AI adoptions that could help those people, and why we have a lot of noise coming from things that are going to only keep promoting the problems that got us here, because it's the same mentality and the same human disconnect that is being promoted because that's been profitable, and they're gripping with white knuckles to keep that profitable. But as I posted over on my Facebook right now, I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little disappointed, and it's going to be hard. My intention was to do a 90-day stretch of these lives feeding. It's not feeding the algorithm, because believe me, my views and everything have decreased because I'm not selling. I'm not associating myself for Substack. But that's not my intention. My intention to honestly use AI. I love Substack's AI cutting my longer conversations right now into little clips that get automatically pushed over to YouTube. Why? Because I need to establish a presence over there. I need to reactivate my old YouTube channel that I had for the Belly Guru for other plans and things that I see are happening, for my work in terms of connecting community care and having these conversations. I'm fertilizing the soil right now for something bigger. But the seeds that will be planted are the clinicians who are right now doing treading water. I'm not working in medicine. I am seeing that as when I see so many physicians on TikTok right now desperately trying to sell, I get reminded of when I was making that move, but it was 2005 and there was no social media. I get reminded why I moved into Mind Body Brand Academy to help some of my peers create their presence online, because it was 2015-16 and people were just starting to listen to me, although I had been since 2005 in a different member model with a private practice in it. Flexible ways to make income, flexible ways to make revenue as a business, but doing it part-time, right? But my kids were starting to grow up. But it took 10 years because I needed the industry to change for other physical therapists and yoga therapists and even some people who were, somatic, anyone who was in the somatic, psychosomatic practice arena, which is what I was in as a physical therapist. As an athletic trainer, I wasn't in that yet, but as a physical therapist who had then brought in health coaching, who had brought in life coaching through yoga, that seemed revolutionary. But I was 10 years in because the system, right? The system. It wasn't until social media came out that I even got my first interview by someone who is in business operations who saw me entrepreneurial, and they were also trying to help clinics, and they weren't even in the big health conversations, but that's all that there is, because those are always the voices that monopolize the conversations, but they're always monopolizing the early adoption of anything coming out that could help small business, that could help small health. Big health always comes in and cannibalizes things, but they're ignorant. They're ignorant. They don't know how to actually bring good health delivery to everyday people. They have not known how to do that since day one. This book is your introduction into that, the social transformation of American medicine. If you need to read this book to understand me. If you don't want to read this book and you are in big health, you are part of the problem. Whether you're an employee of it or you're an administrator, or definitely if you're an administrator and you don't read this book, because you're still operating under the problem people here, under the creation of allopathic health. What does this have to do with human systems? Allopathic health has always been missing human systems. What do I mean by human systems? I don't mean they didn't know about human body systems. That's one aspect. But they fragmented it and they created different disciplines with different physician heads to basically create a vertical that pushed out all of the other healthcare professions that were operating in that medical care model of community health. Community health saves lives. It's not just about getting into acute care, hospitalization, antibiotics, pharmaceuticals, surgery interventions. By that point, you have gone through a failed community health model. So that's why you need to read this book. Okay? That's why if you're anywhere in community health, you definitely need to read this book, not because it's going to give you it's going to give you the conviction you're going to need. It's going to make you understand why you need to be a steward of responsible AI adoption, because big health isn't going to do it. They're not. They're already not. They're already throwing private health information all over the place. We have absolutely no guardrails. I know they say they're HIPAA compliant. I know they say they're SO whatever C, 1, 2, whatever compliant. Those things mean nothing inside a US governing model that has just thrown all of that out the window when the government wants to seize the data. Our government's not even following the judicial system. The JOD, the head of the judicial system, the Department of Judicial stuff, is like, listen, we're not operating. The Constitution never meant for there to be three separate legs of government. Like, they're just flipping the model here in the US. You understand? Like, a lot of people have your health. There's data breaches. Listen, AI is many things. There's motor learning. It's machine learning, but it's for the sake of understanding it as a clinician or anybody in the healthcare biz. You need to learn it. You need to understand machine learning is motor learning. That's what they modeled it on. What you know about the brain's motor learning, that's what they modeled it on. The cognitive models of learning in the brain is what they based machine learning on. Okay? So for all intents and purposes in healthcare, it's motor learning. ML is motor learning to you. But that's not just that, that's a piece of AI. AI is many things. Voice AI, voice transcriptions from years ago, that was AI. That was AI. You're talking to Siri back in 2012. That was AI. That was AI. And I know my colleagues don't understand that because they're not having human to human conversations anymore. They're exhausted. My healthcare colleagues are exhausted. In fact, that's why I even went into peer mentorship, to give them multiple branches to their money tree. That's what I was offering them, multiple branches to their money tree. When you're trying to operate as a boutique business or a niche model inside healthcare, which has been colonized by insurance models of payment. It's complicated because of the human beings who are operating the systems, and that complication is not going to get cleaned up by giving over that complication to automated systems, because most of the people in big health who are making the decisions, who are then going to dictate what healthcare and AI looks like, or at least the noise about what it's supposed to look like, many of them don't even understand what I just said. That AI is many things. Large language models, machine learning, and AI are three different things. Two of them sit in the third one. I am talking to people who didn't even understand a holistic human systems model for approaching the health and well-being of human beings. You understand? I left my position with Novant Health because I couldn't get my idea for maternal health care on another floor, because the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the only way to bring in education at the time. Things have changed. Things have changed because people like me have been persistent in their role. People like me have been persistent in their role. I didn't have the tolerance for it. I couldn't. I had to get out of the system to get back in as a contracted person. And in the midst of all that, bring up my children. And in the midst of all that, go through a horrible financial destruction, only to just get on my feet and there be a global pandemic. My story is very different than some other people who attempted to do that. But we still have the same problem, right? Had someone been able to understand the real problem in big health was this, which I understood because I was reading this book and I was reading this book and I was reading this book. Like, I'm a person that can read all of these books and I understand human beings have this stuff. And I know that one day, very, very soon, we will realize the endless web is why we have interoception and why epigenetics is where we should be targeting. But I'm also somebody that reads this book. I am a rare bird inside the voice of AI and human conversations converging in healthcare. But I really deeply understand the human. And I understand that if somebody had understood human beings the way I did and was trying to just get an idea on a different floor in healthcare, there would be a massive difference in terms of where obstetrics is right now. Like all of these OBGYNs who are crying on TikTok right now about how they have the highest liability and they can't practice medicine and they're all trying to be health influencers and pushing hormones and getting into all the people that fell down, all the wonderful women who came out of OBGYN to become health influencers, because again, back in 2011 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, that's the only way anyone would ever listen to anything holistic in women's health. Nonetheless, they would hardly listen to women's health inside healthcare. They fell down the rabbit hole. They found down the rabbit hole of luxury medicine. They found down the rabbit hole of concierge retail health. And where are they now? Where are they now? Where are all the big health influencer women who fell down that rabbit hole? You know, the only one I truly follow and respect right now is her, because I always did, because she did it different. Aviva Ram did it different from the beginning. She said, I'm not being part of this crap marketing health influencer business. I'm going to go in. But you know what? She struggled. I'm pretty sure she's not as wealthy as the ones who were on front of a book with the yoga mat under their arm, trying to ride that wave, who got themselves on all the popular podcasts. But where are all those popular podcasters right now? Where the hell is Brene Brown? You know where she ran? She ran her ass right back into corporate. Okay? We can do hard things, lady. She ran her ass right off of Substack and ran herself right back into her private, communities. Where's Mel Robbins right now? She's trying to fill in the gap. She's trying to fill in the gap for some of these healthcare professionals who were able, but because all they're talking about is menopause right now. Where are all the people who were talking about maternal health 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago when we went into the pandemic? I don't know where the hell they are. I don't know where the hell they are, because I used to sell them Mind Body Brand Academy. I don't know where the hell they are right now. They're stuck in some weed being sold some AI go high level system. Anyway, it's been depressing. It's been depressing trying to do this project, because the more you dig into the AI conversations, and then you go into the health tech conversations, and then you know what's going on really in something like I'm interested, which is women's health. Why? Because women are getting beat up once again by the systems in which we are trying to be just a freaking helpful part of. I'm tired.